Hello, welcome to Wrazel Cannabis Broadcasting Network. My name is Keiko Beatie, and we're here from the show A Seasoned Perspective. How would you like to hear from an award winning talk show host who has served our country in the military and supports medical cannabis for patients? We're also going to take a look at the perspective of the numbers of minorities who are imprisoned at this time just for nonviolent cannabis crimes. We'll be right back with you after a word from our wonderful sponsors. Again, this is Wrazel Cannabis Broadcasting Network.
Wrazel Cannabis Broadcasting Network is the home for cannabis content online. If you're interested in advertising with us, get started at wrazelcbn.com/advertise.
Hello, everyone. We're back at A Seasoned Perspective. Again, my name is Keiko, and we have with us an honored guest who is such a part of the community and has been in many of your homes in the past few years. I have with us Montel Williams, veteran and activist, and a wonderful supporter of the movement of imprisoned prisoners inside for nonviolent crimes. Hello, Montel. Good morning. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Keiko. Thank you so much.
Yes, I know that it's more early morning for some people out there, but here with us in the studio here, we're just very honored to have you. You have been well respected through the years, and also with your MS and your fight for cannabis for patient use. And I just want to bring everybody up to date a little bit about where you're at this time with your illness and also how you've been doing.
I'm doing great. I think you said in my introduction that now I'm a supporter of cannabis. A lot of people don't know that I've been in this cannabis activism movement for now almost 20 years. Back long before this became vogue and long before people decided to come out, I was one of the first celebrities in Hollywood to actually step up to a microphone and admit openly that I was a cannabis user on a daily basis. And that's back in 2000, 2001. And literally back in 2001, was searching for and helping, MPP and several organizations literally, write and work on legislation all over the country to allow patients to have a unfettered conversation between the doctor and themselves on the use of medical marijuana. And that's back starting in 2001. Back in 2001, I was seeking out and searching for, CBD products, which now all of a sudden in the last 5 years have become so vogue. But I was looking for CBD products back in 2001, knowing that our federal government back then, and a lot of people who watch your podcast don't know this, but the federal government has filed for and given itself a patent on CBD back in 2001. So I've been working long before this was something that people jumped on the bandwagon for. And for a lot of that time doing so, literally being ostracized because I was willing to come out where so many people weren't. And so I'm so happy that activism is, started off where we were working with, the first 19 states. And now we're up to 35 states in the District of Columbia that have some sort of
I think it's 39.
39
Yeah,
states.
it's 39 states now. And of course, next month, September 2020, the House will be voting on to possibly decriminalize it from being a Schedule 1 drug. And this is something that I've been wanting to see, the deschedulization of the plant.
Yeah, I think that's really where we ought to begin, and not just decriminalize and leave it on a schedule, but it should be really taken off the schedule and treated as a nutraceutical like so many other, nutraceutical kind of remedies are.
Now, speaking of nutraceuticals, you had a brand that you had come out with that was really helping with your MS. How is that going, or have you moved on to another product then?
No. I literally, I still have a brand, but my brand right now, we stopped, we ended a relationship with the contract manufacturer, and I'm seeking another manufacturer as we speak to get the product back in the marketplace very, very quickly. People were to tune into my podcast, which is Let's Be Blunt with Montel at let'sbebluntwithmontel.com. you can find the podcast anywhere that podcasts are available. You can get a little bit more information about where you can still find some of my products. I was co-producing with Cura, and now I'm literally getting ready to start a relationship with another contract manufacturer, and hopefully we'll have the products back in the marketplace within the next couple of months.
I hope so, because I do know a couple of people who were utilizing your product and doing very well with it. And one, a very close personal friend who had MS starting when he was only 26 years old. So I really look forward to being back out there for patients. And you've been such an inspiration for patients. And for me, my background being Ayurvedic, Chinese, and holistic medicine, I have chills just thinking of how you really put yourself out there as an activist to show here's an intelligent person who's been respected by the community, and just showing a simple natural plant could help them with their illnesses. And I really feel that you have been such an inspiration to many people to come out and now show. Now look at us. We are an industry, a global industry, but we have so much legislation choking us from being able to reach patients. And one thing I know that both you and I feel very strongly about is the enormous amount, I believe it's estimated at 200,000 people who are in prison for simple non-possession nonviolent possession of cannabis. Can you tell me your relationship with the group, the Last Prisoner Project?
Oh, absolutely. I got involved in the Last Prisoner Project when they reached out to me and told me about the Michael Thompson story that's taking place in Michigan. And I heard about this story. It really is egregiously offensive. How can a state pass a cannabis law that allows people to sell pounds of marijuana, move it around the state, and yet have a person incarcerated for 60 years for having done the same thing almost 20 years ago? It seems to me to be absolutely ridiculous, draconian. We need to change these antiquated cannabis laws. And, it's something that I think a lot of the people who jumped into this industry trying to make a buck didn't recognize that it should have been incumbent upon them and should be their responsibility to force legislative changes to literally expunge the records of people who have been incarcerated for non-violent possession charges. And let's make sure we understand, Keiko, anywhere between 75 and 80% of the people who have been arrested for cannabis since it was made illegal in 1937 have been people of color. So this has been nothing more than a movement to re-enslave a large group of people and keep a for-profit criminal system, penal system, up and running. And it's time that this comes to an end. And, as we see all of the protests across the country because of racial injustice, this is one of the things that's right at the top of the list. I mean, right now, since we passed cannabis laws, and you just said in 39 states, 90% of the people in this industry are people who aren't people of color. And they're the ones that are being allowed to make money on the backs of those who were people of color that are been incarcerated and not allowed to be participants in now, the process of turning this into a viable business.
And what it is that I believe that the arrest rate as comparison to Caucasian to people of color is at least 5-1. I mean, it is very egregious. And when we look at Michael Thompson, who's there in Michigan, he has, he had 3 pounds, and he has now served 25 years for possession, and he's very nonviolent, had nothing on his record, and now he is in his 60s. He has now contracted COVID, and I just really feel that this is really unfair. We need to do what we can, and I believe that there are numbers that I'm going to give out to everyone that they can call the parole board of Michigan as well as the governor's office and ask for clemency for Michael Thompson. And I know that you've been very supportive of this, and that's what we need to do. We need to get the word out there that everybody can do their part by just calling, writing letters, and making it known that there are way too many people who were racially profiled for simple possession.
I mean, it became an easy way for, the, masses across the country to incarcerate people of color, knowing that if they walked into, a minority neighborhood, sometimes, minorities would have a little bit, something under an ounce or less, an eighth in their pocket, and would give them good reason to, arrest them on the spot and then incarcerate them, where you notice that, you don't hear a lot about guys walking off the desk in Wall Street being arrested for the same amount. And 9 times out of 10, normally, Caucasian young people are let off right on the spot, whereas an African American is arrested and taken into, a precinct and charged and booked. And it's time for this madness to stop.
What do you think a person could do to help bring this to light and, rectify these matters?
Well, I mean, there's lots of organizations out here across this country right now who are stepping up to the plate and doing like the Last Prisoner Project, that are doing as much work as they can. I'd say donate as much as you can to these organizations and become a vocal, advocate. I mean, with the more and more we speak out, the less and less this will happen. And, unfortunately, there are still a lot of people who aren't speaking out.
Why do you think that is? They're not speaking out.
I don't know. I can't get inside of individual people's heads. I know that, activism takes, a leap of faith on a lot of people's part to want to step up and have a light shined on them while they shine a light on something else. And sometimes people don't want to have that light shine on them for whatever the reason. I'm not going to, disparage people, who don't get involved, but I'm just going to beg that they second guess themselves and say, maybe I can make a difference. And it's just like right now. I mean, we have a lot of people that are going to sit on the sidelines here in November 2nd and know that by sitting on the sidelines, they are going to be responsible for the next 4 years of the devastation of what we call a democracy, the United States of America. And we need to get these people to get up, get out of their seats, fill out an absentee ballot, fill out a mail-in ballot, go to the polls, put on an extra mask, like Michelle Obama said, carry an extra pair of shoes and pack a lunch and get ready to vote, because it's going to be incumbent upon us to do that to preserve what we feel America should be.
And you were bringing up before about this industry. This industry is definitely, there's a very large convention that takes place in Vegas called MJ BizCon. And what very much surprised me is how it was a lot of gentlemen, Caucasian gentlemen in suits. There weren't that very many women on the floor, and there certainly wasn't a lot of minorities. I barely saw any Asians there, but of course, Asians don't come out too much anyway in this field. But I really didn't see that many people of color either. And I know that this community is made up of everyone. And I don't want to see us miss out in not having a much better blend of community involved in the industry of cannabis, because it is for all patients and it is for all people to utilize. And I'm very disappointed that we can't see more being done in the industry with people of color. And I guess you know about all the social equity programs coming about. How do you feel that's going for us?
The social equity programs are not programs that are enforceable. And a lot of states that have put them in place literally have just done so for lip service and not really gone out and enforced the idea of making sure that, individual businesses hire people of color or even partner with people of color. There are several states that, literally have a block on their applications that say how many minorities do you have working for you? So people go out and pay people to lend their name to an application, and then once the business is up and running, they cut them loose. So I'm not really that enamored with the supposed equity programs that are in place. I'll be more, I'll feel much more favorable about them when I start seeing action rather than just lip service.
Well, we need to get everybody out there to, start, taking advantage of some programs and bringing to light how they can be a part of this industry. Did you find it was hard for you to create your brand?
Oh, I still find it hard even right now today, even as much advocacy as I did for the first 10 years before this became something that's, broadened in America. I've literally had a really and still have a really tough time of it right now. I've been involved in this now for 20 years, and I think I'm probably, at least in the top tier of those people who have been advocates respected in this business. Yet, I don't have a lot of national corporations running to knock my door down to see if I participate with them. Let's put it that way.
That really surprises me and it disappoints me and makes me angry that somebody of your caliber and a lot of my other friends out there can't seem to just flow into this industry. It does take hard work. Starting any type of company takes hard work, but that they wouldn't welcome a patient. To me, I think that the patient is the unsung hero in this. Them just trying to get their medicine is such a daily chore when they should really just be focusing on themselves. I keep on thinking, what can we do to make this not be such a seesaw of blockage from holding us from having good companies with great medicine for patients. It's very frustrating.
What happened is this industry jumped from 0 to 100 overnight. We jumped up to 35, 34, 6, 37, 38, 39 states, and people jumped in. And unfortunately, a lot of minorities don't have access to the supporting funding that is required to open any form of part of this business in any one of the individual verticals. And in some states where it's required to have a full vertical setup, there's not a lot of businesses that are willing to fund minority started businesses. And so, there's not the same opportunity that's available for those who are not in the minority population. However, I won't be thwarted. I'm going to keep trying to knock on doors and keep knocking on doors as hard as I can to see if we can remember. And you nailed it in a way when you said people have to remember that whether it be an adult use state or not, I feel very strongly that I think most people who gravitate towards cannabis rather than alcohol are gravitating for what they may not even know is an underlying medical condition, whether it be relaxation, whether it be, trying to, ease anxiety, whether it be for sleep. They may not call that a medical reason, but that is a medical reason. And so, I think what's going to happen is, and what we're seeing right now, it's shaking out right now during this whole COVID pandemic. We're seeing that people are ordering more and having more cannabis delivered to their home because they're tired of sitting around and seeing the results of overuse of alcohol. And they recognize that, this is something that's bringing them some form of relief that they hadn't had before they tried it. And so I think the more and more we understand that, we need to not leave the patients on the battlefield, but get them off the battlefield. We recognize how good this works for our veterans, how good this works for PTSD, how good this works for anxiety, how good this works for other maladies. I think more and more people will start to recognize that, we got to remember that this whole movement started with patients. And let's remember that back, 20 years ago, there were people being dragged out of their homes, on medical gurneys with IVs in their arms just because they were growing a little bit of marijuana in their backyard. If it were not for them, there would be no medical marijuana business across the country. And I think people are going to start to get back to that. And we absolutely understand that, contrary to, I don't want to call it popular belief, but contrary to this belief in this industry that this is a business that should focus on a younger demographic, we're starting to recognize, like around the rest of the world, that it's the baby boomers and some of the older demographic that literally is finding the most relief in using this plant. And the more and more we focus on that, the more and more we try to, ease our pain that way. I think the industry is going to turn around and understand that it needs to focus a little bit more on medicine than not just getting people high. I mean, we went through this whole period where, where everybody's trying to produce the highest THC product available and don't even understand the research that, the higher the number in THC doesn't equate to a higher high. And that's not what people are looking for. People are looking for relief. They're not looking to be bladdoed out of their brain and not being able to function. Hell, that's what happens when you take too many opioids. So we recognize that cannabis use is and can be, a good relief to opioid addiction and has been utilized for opioid addiction to relieve people of opioid addiction. So let's get back. And now we're starting to find, I would venture to say that when you talk to dispensary owners across the country, people came in for a couple of months looking for the highest THC they could get. And then all of a sudden they've now come in looking for something more reasonable and something that, helps them deal with the issues that they're trying to resolve.
Thank you. That was just music to my ears. And do you know, in 10 years, most of our country will be over the age of 65. And I think that with the mainstreaming of the knowledge of cannabis, they're going to see that synthetic pharmaceuticals are just masking their symptoms, whereas a natural plant as cannabis is actually working to balance the body back to health. And that's what we really need to convey out there. This is not something that's sinister like the past rhetoric and prohibition had. Right now, it's a progressive form of medication, and it's true. I think the people who are saying they're adult use recreational, they're really a medical patient because they're feeling better. There's no more anxiety. The depression is lifted. And as we know, when you drink alcohol, it actually turns into a poison within the body. But when you utilize cannabis, it can help bring the body back to balance, mentally, physically, and in the end, I think spiritually as well.
Well, I think, people need to understand is the reason why cannabis works is because, science has proven this, and it's proven this 20 years ago that, humans and mammals have something in their bodies. It's called the endocannabinoid system. And that system is a series of receptors that were built to be antagonized by cannabinoids and actually produce their own cannabinoids. We, without ever having, touched a cannabis plant, have cannabinoids in our bodies. One's called anandamide, the other one's called 2-AG, and we probably have several others that science has just not discovered yet. And when we put in a plant-based organic cannabinoid, it stimulates those receptors and helps to put the body in homeostasis. When you say in balance, absolutely, in homeostasis.
Right.
So it's something that, we as, even from the time that we were little rodents running around on the savannah, we were seeking out cannabis to help solve some of our, born-in illnesses. And so, to utilize cannabis is not something that you're doing because, it's just some fluke. You actually have receptors in your body made to respond to that.
I love it. Yes, thank you so much. And of course, it's Raphael Mechlin, who back in 1964 is when he first discovered the endocannabinoid system. And that is in Jerusalem University, there in Jerusalem. And that's where the most research has happened. And I think once we can get this deschedulized, the research dollars will come through so we here in the United States could start being able to find a lot more of the scientific fact behind why this plant medicine should be available to us on all our grocery store aisles, our drugstores. I don't want to call them drugstores anymore, but...
The Wicked Roots mission is to unlock the healing power of cannabis and create trusted, safe, and highly effective wellness products. They firmly believe that cannabinoids and terpenes found in cannabis and hemp have the potential to positively impact millions of lives, and their team is dedicated to making this a reality. Utilizing proprietary DNA, the Wicked Root offers a brand of pharmaceutical-grade CBD products people can rely on. The Wicked Root team utilizes a full-spectrum CBD base infused with select terpenes to create optimal, science-backed formulas that are consistent and deliver targeted effects. To learn more about the Wicked Root, visit thewickedroot.com, or for more on their current investment opportunity, find Wicked Root in the Wrazel investment marketplace at wrazel.com.
Have you ever gone to Israel and seen any
I've
of the work
spoken.
that
I've
they've done
spoken
there?
in Israel. Spoken in Israel multiple times on cannabis. As a matter of fact, I'm one of the only person back then when I did it to have interviewed Dr. Meshulam in his laboratory in Israel. So I sat down with Dr. Meshulam and talked to him at great length about cannabis. And this is when he was first literally publishing some of the. Well, he had already published. He was reinforcing the information that he had already published worldwide. And a lot of his funding for his research came directly from the United States. A lot of people don't know that. We funded research in the 60s, the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. Funded some of the research that he had. He actually received one of the highest NIDA's highest award for drug prevention. He received that. And so, I think, he's getting ready to publish. He's published some a peer-reviewed document here recently talking about the discovery of some other cannabinoids. We know right now, when he started his research in '64, he discovered both THC and CBD, then verified them, validated them, and in '68, I think he went on again to start look, or '68, '69, started to look for how come cannabinoids worked, and then actually started publishing information about the endocannabinoid system. And then it was in 1998 that we actually, as a government, filed, and anybody can look it up, filed for a patent that was then given to the United States government on CBD based on Raphael Meshulam's research.
And I just want to share with everyone, you can look up a movie. It's called The Scientist, and the director is Zach Klein, and it's all about Dr. Raphael Mechoulam and all the work he's done in bringing forth a great information about natural plant-based medicine, cannabis. So, um, you know, I know talked a little bit about, the disparages of racism. As we go forward, and now that our country is more heightenedly aware of the disparities, what can we do? What can you tell people out there that they can do to help us move forward and get past this and just have more equality?
That's a huge question. I mean, are we all activists in America? No, we're not. And so, I think what's going to have to happen. Well, I had a really great conversation yesterday with Paul Rykoff, who is the founder of the Iraqi Afghani Veterans of America Association or a foundation. And Paul made a really big point, and that was that right now, especially right now, for the next 3 months or next 9 weeks, we should be actually calling our elected officials, calling any member of the Democratic Party and saying, if Joe Biden wants to be president of the United States, he ought to do a speech and talk about how he's going to immediately look into passing legislation to legalize cannabis nationwide. I think that's a movement that would support him with huge turnout at the polls to vote him into office. And part of the reason why he needs to do that is because not only would it be an incredible boon to, our economy, and I'm not just talking about because of cannabis sales from marijuana sales or cannabis sales itself, but I'm talking about from all of the products and things that, growing of hemp and cannabis produces. We have hempcrete. We know that, we can use the cellulose from, the hemp plant to use as a product inside of batteries because they hold so much more electricity. It holds more electricity than graphite. And there's actually two huge publicly traded companies right now that are pushing for more and more research in, cannabis-based batteries. We also know that it can be used for, in salves, and we can also use the seeds of hemp plant for a protein source. There's so many uses. We can also plant hemp and actually clean our soil. There's so many things that we can do. We can plant the hemp plant around other vegetables that we're growing, and they will act as a natural, pesticide. So there are things that we should be doing and ways that we can use this plant to expand our economy, and we should be doing it. And so I think activism.
And I know some of the groups out there that are showing great support to activism. One of them is one of the oldest out there. It's 50 years old this year, and that is NORML, National Organization Reform Marijuana Laws. And I'm definitely a part of NORML. And I feel, even though I have a lot of other things happening in the industry, I feel I'm an activist at heart. I want to bring forward the truth about a simple plant that helps people lead a much healthier, better life. And I do want to see the industry grow with a lot more minorities and make this an equal base for everybody. So I just hope that we can come together, and part of that path is definitely being able to see that the minorities who are in prison for simple possession are given clemency. And I really am so grateful that you've been with us today to help bring to light those issues. And know that hopefully tomorrow, November, we're going to have the power, whether we do it by mail or in a ballot room, to cast our vote for who we feel is going to bring us forward in a much more responsible way for our community and for right livelihood and for the good of the American people. And I am so grateful to you, Montel. If anybody wants to get a hold of you or listen to your podcast, share with us how they can do that.
Well, they can, you can get me on any of the sources that have podcasts, but my podcast is Let's Be Blunt with Montel. I also just started a brand new podcast today, which is called Free Thinking with Montel. So you can get them in any place that you podcast are seen, and you can go up on letsbebluntwithmontel.com and find out all the outlets we're at. And I think I just want to echo one more thing that you just said, and that is, we have a very definitive choice coming on November 2nd. It's either we are all lemmings and run off a cliff, or we work together to build up and rebuild this country back to what it was. I can guarantee you that if we continue down the path that we've been on for the last 4 years, America will not be inclusive for the next 4 years. America will not be the same democracy that we've seen over the last, well over 200 years. And America will literally have seen its best days. It is incumbent upon us to go out and vote. It's no choice in us. We as citizens don't have a choice. If you want to have a country that you would like to see your children grow up in, get your butt out to the polls and vote. And, I know a lot of people are counting on and hoping that they can mail in their ballot. I'd love to be able to do that. I'm trying to do that myself. But, if the state of Florida, slows down the mail the way they have and doesn't get me a ballot in time, I'm going to take my butt out. Even though I am in a high risk category, I'm going to take my butt out and stand in line all day long to make sure my vote gets cast. And I think a lot of other people need to do the same thing. If I have to social distance by standing 25 feet away from other people, I'll do that. But I'm going to go vote, because that's the only thing that's going to, maintain and make this country stay as great as it has been, and hopefully see greater days in the future.
Wonderful words. Thank you so much. For 25 years, I was a precinct inspector on Election Day, and it's very near and dear to my heart. So definitely, we want everyone to go out and vote. Thank you so much for being with us here today on A Seasoned Perspective. Please, everyone, remember the Last Prisoner Project and call your congressman, your parole board, your governors of what state you're in, and let them know that the minorities who are in prison for nonviolent possession should be released with clemency. And please listen to Montel's podcast and know that in November you have a choice. And this is A Seasoned Perspective. Have a good day, and know that patience in cannabis are the number one reason why some of us are here. Thank you so much.